I flew 12 hours from overseas to see my mom. We'd planned this visit for weeks. A stranger opened the door. "I live here," she said. "I don't know your mom." So I called my mom. "Did you move?" She replied, "No, I didn't move. I'm at home waiting for you." You know that weird stomach drop feeling when something is just off? That's exactly what hit me the second she opened the door. I was running on airplane coffee, a half-smashed chocolate croissant from Charles de Gaulle, and 20 hours without sleep, but I was wide awake now. She stood there in my childhood's doorway like it belonged to her. She wasn't even apologetic. No awkward smile, no, "Oh, sorry, you must be looking for someone else." Just flat matter of fact, "I've lived here for 7 months." I blinked at her. "I think you're in my mom's house." She raised an eyebrow like I'd just suggested we switch shoes for fun. "Who's your mom?" I told her my mother's name. Her expression didn't budge. "I don't know her. I live here." At this point, I was too tired to process how, so my brain went straight to sarcasm. "Oh, okay. So, my childhood home just relocated itself into your name." She shrugged. "I've lived here for 7 months." She said it exactly the same way, like she was hitting repeat on an audio file. "No, my mom lives here," I insisted. My voice had that sharp edge I usually reserve for French waiters who bring the wrong order and pretend they didn't. Her lips pressed together. "Maybe you've got the wrong address." "No," I said quickly, shaking my head. "It's not the wrong address. I grew up in this house. I know every inch of it." She gave a little sigh, the kind people give when they're done humoring you. "Look, I don't know what to tell you." And then the door closed right in my face. The sound was soft, but it might as well have been a gunshot. I stood there holding my bag in one hand and the presents from my mom in the other, staring at the white paint of the door like it might just melt away and reveal her behind it, smiling. Just kidding. It didn't. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called my mom. The sound of her voice was almost disorienting in that moment, too normal for what I was seeing. "Did you move?" I blurted. "No," she said. "I didn't move. I'm at home, waiting for you." My stomach twisted. I glanced back at the door. "You're at home?" "Yes." "Like right now?" "Yes, where else would I be?" I swallowed, my brain pulling in two completely opposite realities and trying to mash them together into one. Spoiler, it doesn't work. "I'm outside the house," I said slowly, "and you're not here." She gave a little laugh, the kind people use when they think you're being dramatic for no reason. "Well, of course I'm here." "Uh-huh," I said, staring at the door again. "We'll circle back to that." I hung up before I could say something sharp enough to regret later. I knocked again, harder this time. The woman opened it after a few seconds, and I could practically hear her thinking, "Oh, not you again." "Yes, this is my mother's house," I said. My voice was calmer than I felt. "Why are you here?" Her hand stayed tight on the edge of the door. "I'm renting it." That hit like a slap. "You're renting it?" She nodded once, clipped, like we were doing speed dating and she was moving me to the reject pile. "Who are you renting it from?" She tilted her head, considering me. "From the landlord." "Which is who?" "I don't have to tell you that." The way she said it, not hostile but final, told me she wasn't going to budge. It also told me she had no idea who I was or what this house meant to me, and frankly, she didn't care. I bit the inside of my cheek. "Right, well, enjoy the house." I gave her a smile that wasn't a smile at all. She closed the door again. I stood there on the porch with my pulse pounding in my ears, staring at the brass numbers above the door. The same ones I'd looked at 100 times growing up. The same little scratch in the paint next to the doorbell where my mom once hung a wreath too heavy for the hook. The same house, and somehow completely not. This wasn't just wrong. This was wrong, wrong. My mother was at home, but apparently her home was currently occupied by a stranger who'd been there for 7 months. And my mother, who supposedly hadn't moved, wasn't in it. The presents in my hands suddenly felt ridiculous. Chocolates from a Paris boutique, a silk scarf I thought would make her smile. Now they just felt like props in a play I didn't understand. I walked back to my car, my head full of static. Either my mother had gone completely delusional, or there was something happening here that no one had bothered to tell me. And if it was the second one, someone was going to regret thinking I'd just shrug and get back on a plane. If you think walking up to your mom's house and finding a stranger there is strange, you should know. I've been here before. Not here exactly, not on that porch, but in the same position. Being told I'm wrong about my own life. That reality is something different than what I see right in front of me. The first time I learned what that feels like, I was 7 years old. That was the year my mom remarried. On the wedding day, I remember the cake, the itchy dress, and how everyone kept telling me how lucky I was to have a dad again. It sounded nice. A dad. Even the word felt like it had weight. I didn't have many memories of my real one. He died when I was 4. Just a couple of blurry images and the scent of his aftershave that would sometimes come out of nowhere like a ghost. The new man wasn't scary in the obvious ways. He didn't yell or slam doors. In public, he was warm, charming, helpful. He made people laugh. But there was something in the way he looked at me sometimes, like he was trying to solve a problem he wished he could just delete from his to-do list. And here's the problem. My mom never seemed to notice. At first, it was subtle. Things going missing, accidents happening, and somehow, without anyone saying it outright, it always ended up being my fault. It was never his voice accusing me. It was always just a suggestion. A little I think she might have dropped casually to my mom in the kitchen while I was in the next room. The thing about those little suggestions is that they stick. Once they're planted, you start to feel like you're defending yourself all the time. You start to wonder if maybe people are right about you. And I did wonder, right up until I realized it wasn't an accident. One day a vase broke. I wasn't even in the room when it happened. I heard it crash from upstairs. By the time I came down, he was already sweeping up the pieces, shaking his head. "She's been running around all morning," I heard him tell my mom. "I wasn't even in here," I said. My voice went high and sharp, the way it always did when I knew I was about to be railroaded. He looked at me with that calm, patronizing expression I'd later come to hate, like I was a child making up stories. "You probably didn't mean to," he said, "but you need to be more careful." And that was that. My mom gave me the disappointed mom look, and I went to my room feeling smaller than ever. If that had been the only time, maybe it wouldn't have gotten under my skin. But it wasn't. It happened again and again, always just enough to make me look bad, never enough to make him look like the villain. Then the new kids came. First my half-sister when I was 7, then my half-brother 2 years later. And just like that, they had their real family, the one I wasn't really part of, not in the way they were part of each other. Don't get me wrong, my mom still loved me. I know she did, but she loved them with a kind of excitement she didn't have for me. Every milestone they hit was an event. With me, it was just expected. And him. He adored them, praised them, bought them little gifts. With me, the best I could hope for was to be tolerated. The worst was when he'd take their side over something I hadn't done. The amusement park incident is burned into my brain. It was a perfect day, or it should have been. Cotton candy, roller coasters, the works. Then, in line for the log ride, my half-sister started crying and said I'd pushed her. Total fiction. I hadn't even touched her. He crouched down, comforting her, shooting me a glance that said, "I've got you now." Then he took her and my brother aside, whispering low. I couldn't hear what he said, but I knew it wasn't good. On the drive home, my mom was quiet, too quiet. And when we got back, I was told I was grounded for hurting my sister. No discussion, no chance to explain. That night, I heard him in the kitchen telling my mom I was jealous of them, that it wasn't healthy. I lay in bed frozen, my heart pounding. That was the first night I really understood the power he had. Not over me, but over her. He could decide what I'd done, and she'd believe him. I was terrified. Not of him hurting me. He never would. No, I was scared of something worse. That he could rewrite me. That he could decide who I was. And my own mother would see that version instead of me. That's the kind of fear that doesn't go away, even when you grow up. By my late teens, I was counting the days until I could leave. I did okay in school, made friends, kept myself busy. But inside, I was always on guard, hyper-aware of how things might be twisted against me. When my mom and he finally divorced, I was already in my early 20s. My siblings stayed close to him. They had no reason not to. He'd been good to them. And maybe they believed his version of me, too. After that, life moved fast. College, jobs, and then the big leap, France. It felt like I was finally out from under the shadow of all that. I kept my share of the house, my half from my dad's will, but never once thought about using it. It was my mom's home. I wanted her to have it. We kept in touch, of course. Calls, occasional visits. Things were fine, not perfect. The favoritism toward my siblings didn't magically disappear, but there wasn't open conflict. Then, about a year ago, I started to notice something different. My mom was cooler on the phone, distracted. She'd cut conversations short. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she was busy, maybe tired. We still talked, just not the same way. And here's the thing about that kind of slow drift. You don't notice it's happening until you're already far from where you started. After 2 years abroad without seeing her in person, I decided I needed to come back for a visit. I missed her. I missed home. I missed feeling like part of the family, even if I'd never completely been one of them. So I called, told her I was coming. She sounded pleased, said she'd be at home. If I'd known what was waiting for me when I got here, maybe I would have braced for it, but maybe not. Maybe I still would have walked up to that porch, gifts in hand, believing the story I'd been told my whole life, that home was home and my mother was in it. Turns out I didn't know a damn thing. I was still standing on the sidewalk in front of my childhood's house when I called my mom again. My fingers were cold, even though it wasn't cold out. Hey, can you give me your address? I tried to sound casual, like I wasn't looking at a front door that now belonged to a stranger. There was a pause. Why do you need my address? She didn't sound suspicious, just puzzled. I just want to make sure I'm heading to the right place, I said. She chuckled like this was a minor quirk of mine. It hasn't changed. Then she rattled it off. An address across town. I stared at the street name on my phone. I'd never heard it before. I'll be there soon, I said, and hung up before she could ask anything else. I called an Uber. The driver didn't say a word, which was fine by me. As we crossed the city, the blocks got shabbier. Cracked sidewalks, pawn shops, the kind of convenience stores with bars on the windows. My stomach felt heavier the closer we got. Her building was a tall gray slab with flickering lobby lights and chipped tile floors. I took the stairs. Each landing smelled faintly of fried food and something older, harder to place. When she opened the door, I forgot my prepared line. She looked smaller than I remembered, standing in a one-room studio that barely had space for the bed, a table, and 2 mismatched chairs. A hot plate sat on the counter like it was the whole kitchen. "What is this place?" I asked before I could stop myself. She tilted her head. "This is my apartment." "Why are you living here?" Her brow furrowed like I'd just asked why water is wet. "You told me to. You asked your brother and sister to handle it. You said we needed to rent the house." It felt like someone had tilted the floor under me. "No, I didn't. I didn't even know you'd moved." Her voice sharpened just a little. "Of course you knew. You told me in your messages." I stared at her. "What messages?" She crossed to the little table, picked up her phone, and handed it to me. WhatsApp was open. My face in the profile photo, my name, but not my number. The chat was all short, formal lines. No warmth, no in-jokes, no me in them. "It's better if they handle the rental. Don't worry about the details. It's already arranged." "This isn't me," I said. She frowned like she was trying to make the math work in her head. "What do you mean? That's your picture." "It's not my account, and I've never sent you these." She sank into one of the chairs, still looking at me. "Then who set up WhatsApp for you?" I asked. "Your brother and sister. Last year I couldn't get it to work, so they fixed it. They said this was you. They said you wanted them to take care of everything. And you believe that." It slipped out sharper than I meant. She gave me a look. "Why wouldn't I? They were here. I thought they were helping. They told you I didn't want to talk to you about it. They said you'd get upset if we discussed it on the phone, that you'd made up your mind." I swallowed hard. "I never said that, not once." She stared at me for a long beat. "So, you didn't ask them to rent the house?" "No." Her shoulders sagged. "Then, I don't know what to think." We sat there, the phone between us like it was a third person. I picked it up and scrolled back. The rental idea didn't come as a demand. It crept in, little comments, then more frequent, until it was treated like a done deal. The messages started sounding like arrangements had already been made, even though I'd never agreed to anything. I set the phone down. "Mom, these aren't from me. I wouldn't move you out without talking to you. I wouldn't do this." Her mouth trembled slightly. "All this time I thought you—" She stopped, looked down. "I thought they were the ones on my side, that you'd changed." "Changed how?" "Stopped caring," she said softly. "That you didn't want me in the house anymore." I shook my head. "No, never." She exhaled slowly, like air leaving a balloon. "If it wasn't you, then—" She trailed off again, but the unspoken names were right there between us. Her phone buzzed. A new WhatsApp message lit up the screen from the same fake me. "Things here in France are really expensive. I hope you understand." We both stared at it. My skin prickled. "Don't answer," I said. She nodded, and we waited, watching the 3 dots appear and vanish. The thing about thinking you've uncovered everything is you're almost always wrong. I thought I'd gotten to the bottom of it. Fake WhatsApp account, forged consent, unauthorized rental. It was enough to make anyone's blood boil. But I was wrong. There was more, and it was worse. But I didn't know that yet. Right then, I was sitting across from my mother in a lawyer's office that smelled faintly of old paper and burnt coffee. The lawyer had a calm, polite smile, like he'd seen every kind of family disaster, and mine was just Tuesday. He slid a photocopy across the table. That's your signature, correct? I didn't even need to touch it. No, not even close. He nodded like that was exactly the answer he'd been expecting. That's good, because it's on the consent form attached to the tenant's lease, the one authorizing them to rent the property. I picked up the paper and stared at the looping imitation of my handwriting. Wow, they didn't even try to get it right. I've seen ransom notes with better penmanship. My mother shifted in her chair. She'd been quiet the whole time, her hands clasped in her lap, like if she gripped them tight enough, none of this would be real. The lawyer cleared his throat. The account the rent has been going to is in your sister's name. That's where we start. That was enough to light the fuse. We had leverage now, the kind that could be used in a courtroom or whispered into someone's ear until they caved. Forgery is one of those words people don't want anywhere near their name. We didn't wait. 2 days later, my mother and I stood in my sister's kitchen. She was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, while my brother sat at the table pretending to check something on his phone. I put the lease copy on the counter between us. You want to explain this? My sister glanced at it and shrugged. We were managing things for Mom. She didn't need all that space. That's not the question, I said. The question is why my name is on here without my permission. My brother finally looked up. We thought you wouldn't care. You don't even live here anymore. Right, I said. Because geographical distance cancels out ownership. That's in the Constitution, isn't it? They didn't laugh. My mother stepped forward. You will return the rent money, all of it. My sister's mouth twitched. It's not that simple. Why not? I asked. We don't have it, my brother said. The room went very still. What do you mean you don't have it? He hesitated just long enough for me to know something was about to break loose. We gave it to Dad. My mother's face drained of color. What? He needed it, my sister said quickly. His business went under. He's drowning in debt. We were helping him. I laughed. I couldn't help it. So let me get this straight. You impersonated me, forged my signature, kicked Mom out of her home, and rented it out. All so you could bail out the man who spent my childhood making sure I felt like a squatter in my own house? Neither of them met my eyes. My mother's voice shook. You lied to me for months. I thought you were protecting me from her. She gestured toward me, but you were protecting him. My sister straightened her chin up like she was making some noble confession. He's our father. We couldn't just let him sink. You didn't just let him sink, I said. You threw my mother overboard to build him a raft. The rest of the conversation was short and ugly. I told them we had proof of the forgery, proof of the payments, proof they'd used the property without consent, and I told them exactly what the lawyer had said. We could take it to court or the police. They chose the third option, repay every cent. They didn't have it anymore, which meant it would come out of their pockets. Monthly payments until the full amount was back in my mother's account, plus damages. The lease was terminated within the week. The tenant, understandably furious, moved out without penalty. By the end of the month, my mother was back in the house. Her house. Our house. She started calling her old friends again, inviting them over like nothing had happened, except I knew something had. She looked lighter, and she looked at me differently now, like she finally saw me without someone else's words in the way. I flew back to France not long after. Life there felt the same, but I didn't. A few weeks later, my laptop pinged with an incoming Zoom call. It was my mom. She was in the kitchen, sunlight streaming in from the big window, a couple of her friends laughing in the background. You're smiling, I said. I have reasons to, she replied. We talked for an hour about nothing and everything, but in the back of my mind, I kept thinking about how close we'd come to losing all of it. The house, the truth, each other. Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments below and subscribe for